The story started with a simple thought. When someone takes care of something long enough, it can gain a soul. However, once that thing is thrown away, its meaning disappears. This idea perfectly showed how the world had become cold, where even emotions could be tossed aside like trash. In a clean and shining city, a young girl accidentally ripped her doll. Instead of fixing it, her parents simply threw it away. The doll dropped through the city's garbage system until it landed deep underground. Down there lived a boy named Rudo, who quietly searched through piles of trash. People called him the trash thief. He wasn't stealing gold or food, he was rescuing things others no longer cared about. When the guards caught sight of him, sirens went off. Rudo ran fast, and although he escaped, he only managed to grab one small thing: that broken doll. Outside the city walls, life was the complete opposite. The rich lived above, while the poor suffered below, struggling to eat and survive. Rudo lived among them, fixing whatever he could find. When he repaired the doll, he didn't see it as trash. To him, it was something that still deserved love. Later, his childhood friend Chiwa came to see him. She worried about him sneaking into the city again, but she knew how much he hated how the rich treated the poor. While they talked, a few boys appeared and started teasing Rudo. They called him names and insulted his father, who had been accused of murder and thrown into the pit. Rudo tried to stay calm, but their words stung deeply. Thankfully, Chiwa's gentle words reminded him that he wasn't his father. Feeling comforted, he smiled a little and gave her the repaired doll as a gift. That night, Rudo went home to Regto, the kind old man who had raised him. Regto noticed Rudo's wounded hand, bandaged it, and warned him again that their world was cruel. Anyone who broke the rules could be killed. They shared a quiet laugh, trying to forget their pain for a while. However, in the shadows, someone was already watching their home. The next morning, Rudo met Chiwa near the pit, a massive hole where the city dumped both trash and unwanted people. She begged him to stay safe and not end up like his father. Her concern made him smile again, and for a moment, it felt like things might finally get better. But when Rudo returned home, everything changed. Regto was lying on the floor, covered in blood. A stranger was robbing him. Rudo rushed forward, but the man attacked him and ran away. Regto used his final breath to tell Rudo to live on and change the world. With tears in his eyes, Rudo held him until he stopped breathing. Soon after, the guards arrived. They saw the body and immediately blamed Rudo for the murder. No one listened to his cries. They tied his hands and dragged him away as a criminal. At the edge of the pit, people shouted that he was a killer. Even Chiwa stood among them, crying but silent. When she dropped the doll he had fixed for her, his heart broke completely. Then, as the guards pushed him forward, Rudo saw the real killer in the crowd, watching him with a smirk. As he fell into the pit, Rudo's fear turned into anger. His body hit the ground hard, surrounded by piles of broken things. Everything he loved had been taken from him, yet his will to survive burned stronger than ever. From that moment, he swore to rise back up and destroy the corrupt world that had thrown him away. Then, from the trash around him, a massive creature began to move, and Rudo's new life began beneath the city that had forgotten him. The story opened with a look into Rudo's childhood. Back then, he always wondered what happened to the people thrown into the pit. The city called them the Filthy Ones, cursed from birth and beyond saving. Years later, that same boy had become one of them. The nightmare he once feared had now become his life. Not long after he fell, a giant creature made of trash attacked him. Its roar echoed through the wasteland, and soon more beasts appeared, their glowing eyes cutting through the dark. Rudo was frozen in disbelief. The trash itself was alive, moving like wild animals. He ran as fast as he could, stumbling over bones until he found a human skull. The sight crushed him. When he looked up at the faint light far above, he screamed in despair. Then, the ground collapsed, and he slipped deeper into the poisonous fog. Each breath burned his chest, and blood spilled from his mouth. However, just as his body weakened, he thought of Regto, the man who raised him. That memory brought back his strength. Sparks lit up his gloves, and he grabbed a broken pipe. When the first monster lunged, he smashed its face in. Unknown to him, someone was watching from the shadows. From that moment, Rudo fought like a wild animal. Every broken object turned into a weapon, rods became blades, scraps became whips, and his glowing gloves guided every hit. As he fought, the red light from his gloves burned brighter. Then, a huge monster threw him aside, and he landed near a man holding an umbrella. The stranger didn't speak at first. Instead, he placed a gas mask on Rudo's face so he could breathe. But when Rudo demanded answers, the man lost patience. He shouted about how the spares had turned the world into trash. That noise attracted more beasts, forcing another fight. The man spun his umbrella, slicing monsters apart with precise, graceful swings. When a giant rock flew their way, he cut it in half and blasted the biggest monster with a hidden cannon inside the umbrella. After the battle, the weapon folded back into an umbrella. The man took off his mask, looking irritated. He introduced himself as Engine, a cleaner. The smell around them made him gag, and he cursed Rudo for making him remove his mask. Moments later, Rudo collapsed from exhaustion. The scene then shifted to Rudo's childhood. He remembered being teased for saying objects had souls. The other kids laughed, but Regto had told him that anything cared for long enough could come alive. From that day, Rudo believed his gloves were more than tools. They were proof of that bond. Back in the present, Rudo woke up tied up and being dragged by Engine. He begged to return to the surface, but Engine told him the truth. Once someone fell into the pit, they could never go back. The world above was called the Spare, and its people were spares. The land below shifted constantly, trapping everyone forever. Still, Rudo refused to give up. He demanded answers about his strange power and the monsters. Engine agreed, but said they needed shelter first. Soon, they reached a small shack surrounded by trash. Engine left him tied inside, where masked people came out to check on him. At first, they treated him with suspicion, but when he said he came from above, their shock turned to cruelty. To them, living spares were treasures, rare and valuable. They tied him to a truck, mocked him, and forced food into his mouth. However, Rudo bit off a man's finger and glared at them calmly. His eyes glowed red, and the chains began to shake. Anger exploded from within. The chains shattered, and objects started floating around him, glowing red. Regto's words echoed in his mind. If you care enough, things gain a soul. His gloves burned brighter, and he charged forward. The others mocked him, saying givers were useless without their tools, but when he touched a tire and it glowed too, everyone froze. No one had ever seen someone awaken multiple objects. Rudo fought fiercely, knocking everyone down. Just as he was about to strike the last man, Engine stopped him. His calm voice snapped Rudo out of his rage. The glow vanished, and the tire fell apart. Engine had seen enough to understand his potential. He gave Rudo a choice. Stay lost in anger or learn the truth, master his power, and join the cleaners. Rudo didn't answer, but his eyes burned with determination. Though he had fallen to the bottom, he still carried the will to rise again. Rudo woke up in a small clinic after being attacked by trash monsters. His body hurt, but he was alive. The doctor treated his wounds while scolding him for being careless. At first, Rudo thought the doctor was an old man, but when she removed her mask, she turned out to be a strict woman with sharp eyes and little patience. She told him he was lucky to survive because Engine had saved him just in time. When Rudo stepped outside, he met Engine. He thanked him but made it clear he didn't want to join his team. All he wanted was to go back to the surface. Engine didn't argue but warned him that people in the pit hated spares. If they found out he was one, they would kill him. He also said that everything in the pit had a price, even information. If Rudo wanted to stay alive or find a way out, he needed to stick close. Later, they shared a meal, and Rudo finally saw what the pit really looked like. It wasn't just piles of trash. It had cities filled with people trying to survive in their own ways. Engine explained that the pit was filled with something called anima, a strange energy that formed inside things people once cared about. Over time, that energy could create monsters. Normal weapons couldn't harm them. Only items filled with anima, known as vital instruments, could destroy them. These items were special because they carried memories, a cook's knife, a writer's pen, or a father's gloves. Hearing that made Rudo think of his own gloves, a gift from his father. Engine said that bond was what gave them strength. He also told Rudo that only people called givers could use anima. Engine was one, and so was Rudo. That made Rudo remember what Regto once said, if you care enough about something, it gains a soul. Now he understood that the soul was really anima. Engine then told him about his group, the Cleaners. Their job was to fight monsters and find new givers to join them. When Rudo asked if joining them would help him return to the surface, Engine said he wasn't sure, but their boss might know. Before leaving, Engine asked about Rudo's gloves. After hearing the story behind them, he handed him a pouch of money and said he had sold Rudo's old surface clothes. Rudo got angry. But Engine explained that those clothes would have exposed him as an outsider and gotten him killed. After Engine left, Rudo muttered that he would leave the pit once he found what he needed. Just then, a cat stole his pouch. He chased it through the streets, grabbed a wooden staff to stop it, and got his money back, but the staff belonged to someone else. That someone was Zanka, a member of the cleaners. He attacked Rudo, and a fight broke out. Zanka fought fiercely, mocking Rudo's attitude. Instead of fighting back in anger, Rudo apologized, surprising him. The fight cooled down for a moment until Zanka accused him of acting special. That made Rudo angry again, and when he grabbed a metal rod, it started glowing with anima. Zanka froze. Most Givers could control only one weapon, but Rudo could awaken anything he touched. His gloves had a rare ability to turn junk into weapons. Their fight turned messy when Rudo accidentally hit Zanka with a toilet plunger. Zanka shouted in disgust while Rudo kept swinging, confused about what was happening. Soon, Zanka was dripping with dirty water. At that point, Engine showed up, laughing hard at the sight of them. He said Zanka might be odd, but he was one of the cleaners' best and would be training Rudo from now on. Before they left, Rudo met a cheerful girl named Rio. She teased him about his messy hair, making him blush. For the first time since falling into the pit, Rudo smiled a little. Maybe, just maybe, life down here wouldn't be as hopeless as he thought. Then Engine told everyone to move out. Rudo finally joined Engine's crew and rode through the dead city with Zanka and Rio. They entered the cleaners' base through a dark tunnel that opened into a massive underground facility. At the entrance, a girl named Semiyu greeted them politely. Zanka and Rio left right after, while Engine stayed behind to have her inspect Rudo first. As Rudo stood there, 2 flies buzzed near him, but before he could react, Semiyu calmly stabbed both with a fork. Her face stayed composed, though her movements were razor sharp. Engine explained that her vital instrument was her glasses, which allowed her to see deep into a person's soul. When she looked at Rudo, her expression changed slightly. She saw a strange darkness buried inside him, something she didn't dare reveal. Out loud, she simply said he had a strong body and powerful gloves, but warned that control would be his biggest test. Quietly, she also noticed a faint mark around his neck and decided to keep it secret. Engine joked about Rudo's smell to ease the tension, though he could tell Semiyu had seen something serious. As they walked deeper inside, Engine began explaining how the cleaners worked. There were around 100 members divided into combatants, sentinels, and supporters. Many were out on missions, so the base felt emptier than usual. When Engine accidentally opened a noisy training room, he immediately closed it again with a tired sigh, showing how chaotic the place could get. Eventually, they reached the boss's office. Rudo wanted to ask about returning to the surface, but Engine warned him that information didn't come free in their world. If he wanted answers, he had to earn them. He also warned Rudo never to ask about the boss's vital instrument since no one knew what it was. Down here, trust was all that kept people alive. When Rudo entered the office, the room was empty. Semiyu appeared and said the boss was away for a few days. Rudo frowned, feeling his journey had been wasted. Just then, Rio showed up and suggested he join her on a mission while waiting. He couldn't be an official cleaner yet, but he could observe and learn. Rudo reluctantly agreed. Before departure, Semiyu briefed them about the mission. A town near a polluted zone was under attack by trash beasts. Their job was to defend the barricades and clear the area. She explained the world's 3 zones: safe zones for humans, polluted zones crawling with beasts, and no man's lands where no one survived. Rudo remembered falling into one before and nearly dying if not for Engine's mask. Before leaving, Semiyu gave him his own mask, marking his first real step as a cleaner. During their journey, Rudo saw underground towns full of people rebuilding their lives with scraps. To him, the trash around them looked more like treasure waiting to be fixed. At the barricade, he met Grizz, a supporter whose handshake nearly crushed his hand. That moment taught him that supporters weren't weak. They were the backbone of every mission. Soon, waves of small, goat-like beasts charged at the barricade. Rudo fought nervously at first, but soon relaxed when he saw they were weak. Then, larger beasts rammed in, shaking the walls. Rio stayed calm and ordered everyone to stay alert. Suddenly, a massive beast appeared, towering over them all. Rio revealed her vital instrument, Ripper, a pair of deadly scissors she controlled with her feet. As the supporters weakened the monsters, she sliced through them with precise movements. When a smaller beast tried to ambush Rudo, Grizz smashed it and tossed it to Rio, who finished it instantly. Watching them fight together made Rudo realize the importance of teamwork. However, the giant beast still moved even after being cut in half. It grabbed a supporter, and Rudo ran to help. His weapon suddenly transformed into a cage, trapping the creature inside. He didn't understand how it happened, but Rio quickly destroyed it and praised his quick reaction. The fight wasn't over. The creature's core began glowing, making it stronger and more violent. Rudo froze, blaming himself for being weak again. Grizz pulled him up and reminded him not to give up. Encouraged, Rudo steadied himself while Rio went for the final strike. She slashed through the glowing core, and the beast finally turned to dust. As the dust cleared, they noticed something strange. A knife stuck inside the monster's skull. It was a vital instrument. None of them had ever seen a beast carrying one. Everyone stood silent, realizing they had just witnessed something beyond explanation. Meanwhile, far away in a dim cell, the man who once tried to sell Rudo sat in chains. A hooded figure stood before him and quietly asked where to find the boy from above. Rudo's life was no longer just about survival. It was now tied to something far darker waiting in the shadows. When Zanka heard loud music from one of the rooms, so he opened the door and found the cleaners having a full-blown party. Rio leaned toward him and said it was a welcome party for Rudo. Everyone was drinking and laughing, but Rudo sat at the table quietly, lost in his own thoughts. Rio told Zanka that the fight from yesterday had shaken him. He couldn't control his power properly, and now his confidence was gone. Zanka asked what really happened. Rio explained how they fought a giant trash beast that broke all rules. Instead of an anima core, it had a vital instrument inside it. The whole team was still trying to process that. To ease the tension, they had thrown this party. She said Engine and Semu would join soon too. While music filled the room, Grizz walked up to Rudo and thanked him for saving Follow during the fight. But he could see something was wrong. Rudo admitted he felt useless. He said he helped once, but after that, Rio and Grizz had to protect him. He felt weak, the same as back when Regto used to save him. He feared he would always be a burden until he found a way back to the world above. Grizz didn't pity him. He told Rudo that most people looked down on supporters, but Rudo never did. Grizz shared Follow's story, how he joined to fight monsters but didn't have powers. Still, he believed in himself and kept a small item with him, waiting for the day his power awakened. Even then, he wanted to stay a supporter to show their worth. Grizz asked Rudo what he wanted when he lived above, but Rudo stayed silent. Grizz simply told him to trust himself. Just then, Engine came in and asked if Rudo had eaten. Zanka, Rio, and Grizz waved him over, and after a pause, Rudo joined them. For the first time since the fight, he looked a little lighter. Somewhere else, the man who once tried to sell Rudo sat before a stranger in a cloak. He confessed everything about Rudo. The stranger listened quietly, then killed him without hesitation, saying Rudo would make a perfect gift. Back at headquarters, Semu got a call for a new mission involving Zanka and Grizz's team. Zanka noticed Rudo's name on the list and asked why. Semu explained that the case was connected to him. A merchant in a polluted zone reported his cargo stolen by a monster, but the cargo turned out to be a human from the spare. In just a few weeks, 2 spares had fallen. Semu thought Rudo might want to meet the newcomer, maybe find a way home. Rudo hesitated but agreed. On the way, he noticed Grizz carried no weapon. Grizz said his fists were enough and showed a small charm he prayed to before missions. Then, they met a boy who said he was the merchant who had called for help. Rudo questioned him about the sparite, but the boy's answers were cold and short. Zanka grew suspicious since monsters didn't kidnap humans. The boy led them to an old building and told them the monster was inside. When they approached, they saw a man slumped on a chair, but when they got closer, they realized it was a doll. The floor cracked open and they fell into a basement. The merchant melted into clay and 2 figures appeared from the dark. Raiders. Grizz explained quickly that raiders were dangerous thieves who had turned into killers. They were all givers who used clay to make traps and fake bodies. He ordered the others to find a way out while he protected Rudo. Zanka stayed to fight. Rudo wanted to help, but Grizz warned him that these weren't normal enemies. They were human and far more deadly. The raiders said they didn't want to sell Rudo. They wanted his knowledge about the world above. That's when Zanka realized the whole trap was made for him. The raiders used their clay power to summon many fake copies. Zanka studied them carefully as the floor turned soft under his feet. One raider fought with his fists, while the other used a scythe to control the soil. They mocked Zanka, but he stayed calm. He struck his staff on the ground and felt the difference between mud and flesh. With sharp moves, he hit the real ones, and the fake dolls collapsed back into clay. He stood still, catching his breath. Then a cold voice came from the shadows, the same man who had killed Rudo's old captor. He stepped forward and looked at Zanka, saying calmly that he would meet the same end. Rudo and Grizz ran through the dark corridor, their hearts pounding. Then, without warning, everything went quiet. The silence was so heavy that even their footsteps vanished. Rudo felt dizzy but kept moving beside Grizz. After a long, tense walk, they finally spotted an emergency exit ahead. Relief almost hit, but strange shadows started twisting across the walls. Before they could react, a figure appeared right in front of them. At first, Rudo thought it was Zanka, but he quickly realized he was wrong. The man was too fast. One blink and he was already behind him. The stranger called Rudo the giver from above, and that one line made it clear. He wasn't a cleaner, he was a raider. Grizz stepped in front of Rudo, blocking the attack aimed at him. The raider didn't rush. Instead, he circled them slowly, studying them. Grizz said if he wanted Rudo, he would have to get through him first. The raider smirked and started talking casually, saying there was someone special Rudo would like to meet. When he pulled down his mask, Rudo didn't care who he was. He just wanted to know where Zanka was. The raider laughed and said Zanka had been strong but careless. He claimed he hadn't killed him, just poisoned him, though the dose might have been too high. Somewhere else, Zanka's broken body proved the truth. He was alive but badly hurt. The raider then offered a deal. If Rudo came quietly, he wouldn't kill anyone else. To show his power, he changed his form right in front of them, his body shifting like clay. More cleaners rushed in to help, but they didn't stand a chance. The raider knocked them aside with ease. Grizz stood his ground, saying he'd protect everyone, even as a supporter. The raider actually respected his courage, saying most supporters had no power but still held real spirit. Then he lifted his hands, and claws slid out, sharp enough to tear through steel. Rudo yelled at Grizz to step back, but Grizz refused. The raider moved fast, stabbing his claws into Grizz's chest. Rudo froze, watching the blood spill as Grizz's charm dropped from his hand and hit the floor. That sight triggered a memory. He remembered the time Regto found him hitting his head against a wall. When asked why, Rudo said he felt broken, like he couldn't do anything right. Regto told him to find something that made him happy. After trying many things, Rudo found an old doll in the trash. Fixing it filled him with peace, like he'd given it a new life. Regto realized that was Rudo's gift, bringing value back to what others threw away. Back in the present, Rudo picked up Grizz's charm, and it started glowing. Grizz, still alive but fading fast, said Rudo's power came from restoring what was lost. That charm now held his will, and it transformed in Rudo's hands, revealing his true vital instrument. Rudo promised he wouldn't let Grizz die. Grizz smiled weakly, thanking him before losing consciousness. Then the raider introduced himself as Jabber. He said he planned to take Rudo but wanted to have some fun first. Rudo stood firm, holding the glowing charm. Jabber attacked fast, claws slashing, but Rudo didn't even flinch. The blows landed, yet they didn't hurt him. Jabber grew confused, and Rudo explained that Grizz's prayer had become a shield, protecting him. Jabber roared and attacked harder, breaking walls and pillars. Rudo dodged every strike and countered cleanly, each hit stronger than the last. Jabber's nose started bleeding, but instead of stopping, he laughed, calling the fight fun. He said he'd still drag Rudo away once he got bored. Rudo didn't back down. He said he wanted to play too. The two fought fiercely, shaking the whole place. Jabber smashed through walls. Rudo followed with sharp blows, refusing to fall. When Jabber finally hit the wall, he smirked again and admitted Rudo could sense his moves because of the charm. But he wasn't done. Suddenly, Jabber began cutting into his own body, slicing deep into his skin. Rudo froze in shock, not understanding why someone would do that. Blood streamed down, but Jabber just smiled through the pain. His body started twisting and swelling, his muscles stretching unnaturally until he looked nothing like before. Rudo stared, realizing this wasn't over. Jabber wasn't just a fighter, he was turning into something else entirely. And with that, the real fight had only just begun. The fight between Rudo and Jabber kept growing more violent with each passing second. Then, out of nowhere, Jabber stabbed his own chest with his poisoned claws. In his twisted mind, he believed that losing his conscious control would make Grizz's talisman stop reacting to him. For a moment, his theory worked. His body shook, his breath became rough, and his scream turned wild and broken, like something not human anymore. Rudo quickly realized Jabber was no longer in control, yet his speed and power were even greater now. Fear crept in, because he understood continuing the fight could kill not just him, but also Grizz and Follow. He thought of leading Jabber away, but before he could move, Jabber charged at him, slashing hard. This time, the talisman didn't protect him. Shocked, Rudo caught Jabber's wrist, twisted it, and threw him aside. But Jabber stood back up almost instantly, stronger than before. That was when Rudo understood what kind of opponent he faced. A man who only grew tougher through pain, a true masochist. The word reminded Rudo of his painful childhood, when bullies mocked him for not fighting back and called him a masochist too. The memory burned in his chest as Jabber slashed again, claws cutting through the air. Before Rudo could react, a wooden staff struck Jabber across the body, knocking him away. It was Zanka. Despite being poisoned and weak, he still stood tall, smirking that Jabber had wasted too much time playing with a kid. Rudo tried to warn him not to fight, but Zanka brushed it off. He calmly told Rudo that the talisman was no longer protecting him. When Rudo admitted it, Zanka explained that the talisman only worked when someone attacked with a clear intent to kill. Since Jabber had lost control of his mind, the charm simply stopped reacting. Zanka then came up with a risky idea. He said he would strike Rudo with his staff. If the talisman still worked, it would push him forward instead of hurting him, letting him hit Jabber. But if it failed, Rudo would take the blow himself. There was no time to think. Jabber charged again, claws ready, and Zanka warned Rudo not to let even one scratch touch him because of the poison. Without hesitation, Zanka swung his staff into Rudo. The talisman burst with red light, throwing Zanka forward like a rocket. His staff smashed straight into Jabber's face, sending him flying. Both were shocked that it worked, but Zanka laughed and shouted that they would finish it together. From then on, they moved in rhythm. Zanka kept striking Rudo, and each hit launched him forward to slam into Jabber. The attacks hit harder and faster until Jabber's eyes finally flickered with awareness. Zanka took that one chance, smashed his staff into Jabber's head, and dropped him cold. But the poison finally caught up, and Zanka collapsed to the ground. Rudo looked down and saw Grizz's talisman cracking apart. Moments later, it broke completely. He didn't understand why, but Zanka guessed that maybe Rudo's instruments didn't last long. The thought hurt him deeply because that talisman meant everything. Before he could think, pain shot through his body, and he collapsed. Zanka noticed claw marks across his back. Jabber had hit him earlier without either of them realizing. Jabber rose again, bloody but calm. He explained that one claw numbed his pain, letting him move freely while the other carried poison. For him, the venom wore off fast, but for Zanka, it would last half an hour. He struck Zanka once more, leaving him completely paralyzed. Then, Jabber turned to Rudo, who lay weak and unable to move. He muttered that he couldn't return without completing his mission, so he picked Rudo up and carried him away. When Jabber emerged from the basement, he stopped in shock. The battlefield was wrecked, and standing there were Rio and Engine. Engine, holding his umbrella, stabbed it into Jabber's stomach, calling him trash that needed cleaning. He scolded him for trapping their people underground, though he was relieved that Tame had escaped to call for help. Jabber just laughed, saying he was used to being seen as garbage. Engine replied that Rudo had already suffered enough, while Rio sighed in relief seeing Rudo alive. Delmon was furious and wanted to attack, but his comrade stopped him. Engine stepped forward again, warning Jabber that he wouldn't walk away after harming them. Jabber laughed, saying prison couldn't hold him. He admitted he wanted to run, but his mission forced him to stay. He spread his claws, ready for another fight. Before he could move, a girl appeared. Chthoni. She told Jabber his time was over and that he needed to return. He refused at first, but when she mentioned their boss, his grin returned. A strange portal opened behind them. Jabber turned to Rudo, complimented his strength, and said he enjoyed their fight. Rudo, filled with anger, shouted that he would make him pay for hurting Grizz. Jabber smiled, noticed Rudo's gloves, and hinted that his boss would be very interested in them. Then he and Chthoni stepped into the portal and vanished. As silence settled, the cleaners rescued their wounded friends. Rudo rushed to Grizz, apologizing for breaking the talisman. Grizz, smiling weakly, told him not to worry. It had done its job. Those words brought Rudo a brief moment of peace, even as the weight of the battle lingered in his heart. After the fight with Jabber, Rudo sat slumped outside the main hall, drowning in guilt. Jabber had wounded Grizz while he stood there helpless, and the memory cut deep. It reminded him of Regto, the day he had failed to protect him too. The thought kept looping in his mind. Maybe he was just weak, someone who could never save anyone. Engine soon stepped out and saw his frustration right away. He told Rudo to stop tearing himself apart. Grizz hadn't protected him out of pity. He did it because he trusted him as a real ally. Engine told him to quit sulking and go see Grizz, who was awake and waiting inside. When Rudo entered the room, he froze. Grizz sat calmly on the bed, smiling warmly and congratulating him for awakening his power. Rudo was speechless. He had watched Jabber's claw pierce Grizz's chest. How could he be alive? Grizz explained that the medical team saved him, but it was Aishia, their healer, who truly brought him back. He then praised Rudo and Zanka for fighting so bravely. When Rudo apologized for breaking the talisman, Grizz only smiled, saying it had already done its job. Relief washed over Rudo, but the peace didn't last. Engine spoke up, saying the real danger had only just begun. Raiders were now part of the game. Just then, another cleaner entered with news. One of the captured raiders had been overheard whispering about something called the Border. The room went silent. That word meant the raiders weren't just fighting. They were searching for knowledge about the link between the surface and the underground. Rudo asked who was behind all this. Engine then brought in someone unexpected, Corvus, the leader of the cleaners. Calm but intimidating, Corvus said he already knew Rudo's true goal was to find a path back to the surface. Normally, someone like him would never be allowed in their ranks, but Corvus had seen how Rudo had changed, how he had risked his life for others, and how his strange ability could shape battles. For that, he accepted him officially as one of them. In his office, Corvus explained the truth. The line between this world and the one above was called the border. Anyone who tried to cross it was said to die instantly. But there were rumors. A story of a woman who lived deep inside no man's land, near the border itself. A lost traveler had once met her, and when he asked why she lived there, she said she watched over those who fell from above. She even claimed some had climbed back up alive. The words ignited something in Rudo. If even one person had made it back, then maybe he could too. Corvus leaned forward, asking how Rudo had survived the fall when no one else ever had. Still, he warned that finding the woman meant walking into certain death. No man's land was full of monsters, raiders, and horrors beyond reason. But when Corvus asked if Rudo would still go, he didn't hesitate. Later, Follow tried to stop him, calling the idea suicide. Rudo refused, saying this was the only way home. Engine overheard and scolded him hard. He said Rudo couldn't just walk into that wasteland unprepared. No man's land wasn't danger, it was death itself. When Rudo asked if Engine would go with him, Engine said yes without hesitation. The cleaners didn't just fight, they studied trash monsters, learned their patterns, and used that knowledge to survive. For now though, Engine told him to rest. Training started soon after, and it was a disaster. Rudo couldn't even transform a knife. Engine teased him, saying sweets had melted his brain, while Rio defended him, saying at least he could stand again. Rudo still couldn't understand why his ability failed. Watching him closely, Zanka realized something. Rudo had always fixed broken things. Trash others had thrown away. Maybe his power only worked on those. They tested it with scraps. When Rudo picked up a broken shard, it glowed and became a weapon. Engine laughed and praised Zanka's guess. When Rudo tried to create more, his nose started bleeding. Engine explained that the stronger the object's history, the more anima it carried. That was why Rudo's gloves were special. They had been with him since childhood, but it also meant his body took the strain. Zanka quietly wondered if this had something to do with the special series Jabber mentioned. Rudo then asked why his weapons always turned to dust. Rio explained that once he restored something to its best form, it vanished after fulfilling its purpose. Engine said that was Rudo's truth. He gave trash meaning again, and when that meaning ended, it returned to rest. Rio grinned and asked if he'd named his gloves yet, since everyone named their instruments. Her scissors were Ripper, Engine's umbrella was Umbreaker, Zanka's staff was a Sistaff. Rudo admitted he hadn't, and Engine told him to get on it. Far away, the raiders whispered to their leader about the cleaners, the city called Altar, something named the Watchman series, and the boy named Rudo. That night, Rudo sat alone, washing his gloves. Pain burned in his hands, but he kept scrubbing, holding on to what little strength he had left. When he walked back to his room, he found Rio lying on his bed. She told him it was 4 a.m. and asked why he was still awake when a mission waited tomorrow. Annoyed, Rudo asked what she was doing there. Rio said her room was above his, and she jumped through the window after hearing him yell. She looked at his hands and asked if they hurt. Rudo said the gloves helped, but the pain always came back later. Rio looked at his scars and softly asked if they were burns. Rudo said his parents were the ones who left those marks. She went quiet, then said every parent leaves marks, some that heal, some that don't. Then she slipped away into the night. By morning, the team was ready for their next mission. The boss said Rudo's full face mask wasn't finished yet, so they'd go to find the artist who painted protection spells. Their destination, Canvas Town, the city of graffiti. The squad included Engine, Zanka, Rio, Delmon, and Tamsi, with supporters Grizz, Follow, and Tom. On the road, Delmon shouted about how he admired Rudo's passion and demanded he join his team, only for Tamsi to remind him that Rudo already had one. When they arrived, Canvas Town stunned Rudo. The city sat under a giant roof, its walls covered in living art. Engine explained that only those without harmful intent could pass its barrier. Inside, color covered every inch of stone. Their goal was to meet Gob, the spell painter. But when they met the mayor, his voice broke. Gob had died that morning. They found his body surrounded by his last works. The mayor said Gob's love for painting in polluted zones had killed him when he removed his mask. His successor was the crying girl from before, Remlin. She had inherited his brush, a rare bond that formed instantly. Before they left, Engine told her to take care, but she suddenly shouted that Gob wouldn't want anyone to cry. She climbed to the rooftops and painted across the sky, turning grief into color. Paint cans burst into fireworks, lighting the whole city. As everyone cheered, Rudo stood in awe, reminded of home. Engine smiled softly and said they had already received their spell, the art of joy painted over sorrow. Rudo stayed mad at Remlin after she painted his face and left him walking around looking clownish. She moved on to explaining her powers, but the more words she threw out, the less sense it made, and even Engine lost his patience. Her ability turned out to be pure chaos, something that bent to her will with no rulebook in sight. She switched gears and pulled a stunt that shocked everyone, turning her instrument into a tattoo gun just because it felt right to her. Engine and the mayor nearly flipped, but they didn't let her run with it. Before heading off, Rudo gave her thanks for what she had shown him earlier, and she promised with a smile that she would stop by Cleaner HQ someday. On the way back, Engine decided to treat Rudo with a detour straight into a junkyard mansion. Before Engine could finish talking about weapon choices, Rudo was already climbing the heap, snatching up scraps with the energy of someone who thought the garbage was gold. At HQ, the squad met August, the artisan who crafted their gear. The man looked high on good vibes and casually mentioned that he had taken Rudo's measurements while the boy was sleeping. Rudo's face showed zero joy, but at least the equipment was finally done. The group then moved on to syncing their chokers. Each member cut a finger, dropped blood onto Rudo's choker, and he returned the favor. Now they had a full link to communicate as a team. The mission carried them into Penta, the desert wasteland. Rudo revealed his yellow and red mask and showed off his instrument, now proudly named 3R. Over at Raider HQ, Jabber confirmed their target, and his boss decided they would deal with it when they got there. Back in the desert, the squad tore through trash beasts while Tome sat back, scribbling reports and sketches of every creature in sight. Rudo picked up a keyboard, fused it with 3R, and slammed monsters with key imprints until nothing stood. Somewhere far off, a strange girl felt the weapon's power and turned her attention toward him. Through the smoke, Rudo spotted a figure. Tamsi and Delmon called to him, and by the time he looked again, the figure had vanished. The squad went on about his performance, unaware the girl was already stalking them. Soon she stepped out, barefaced with no mask, and invited them into her place. Engine stayed calm, ready to talk things through or fight if it came to that. The moment they crossed her threshold, everything turned grim. A strange sound hit the air, Engine collapsed to his knees, and Rudo froze in disbelief while the girl stood smiling, fully in control of the scene. An hour earlier, Amo had already begun her trap. She led the cleaners to a tall tower in the middle of the desert, pretending to be sweet and harmless. Once they reached her room, she convinced them to remove their masks, smiling brightly as she complimented their faces like an overexcited child. When Engine told Rudo to ask about someone who could move through the sphere, Amo suddenly changed the subject to crushes and love, confusing everyone. Engine tried to reason with her, but her mood flipped fast. She realized they weren't there for her, only for information, and that broke her calm. Engine lied to keep her steady, but she snapped completely. With a creepy grin, she told Delmon to handle it, and within seconds, Engine was drenched, brought to his knees. Rudo noticed Amo's boots had the same branding as his gloves, but she didn't care. She laughed and kept teasing, talking about love like she was playing a game. Zanka tried calming her down, but she burst into fake tears, making Delman attack him with a massive hose. Tamsi doubted mind control, yet Delman acted like a puppet. Amo laughed harder, claiming another fan among them. Rudo's head filled with illusions of sphere guards mocking him, and he barely dodged Delman's water blast. Ryu tried attacking Amo but nearly got hit when the wall exploded. Amo mocked them for fighting each other, saying things would be easier if they just listened to her. Rudo's vision twisted again as Amo turned into the girl he once liked, revealing her trick. She manipulated sense to twist memories. When Follow and Ryu also fell under her control, Tamsi realized it was time to fight back, even if it meant facing his own team. Delman had been working on a small garden for his wife, who had never seen flowers growing on the ground before. For her, even one living plant would be enough, but as her face faded from his memory, it was replaced by Amo's. She had control over Delman, Follow, Rudo, and Ryu. Before they could move, Tamsi activated his weapon, a distaff whose ropes formed a giant nest, trapping all of Amo's followers. The more they struggled, the tighter the ropes pulled. Amo showed no care for them, saying they would still obey her even in pain. Seeing this, Tamsi came up with another plan. He wrapped the ropes again, locking the 4 cleaners inside a massive roll and trapping Amo as well. For a moment, he and Zanka thought they had won, but the fight was far from over. When Amo screamed for help, Rudo and the others began fighting to escape. bleeding, yet refusing to stop. Tamsi then slammed his distaff on the ground, spinning the rope so fast that it tore through the floor and brought part of the castle down. The cleaners fell hard, and even Zanka was shocked. As he argued with Tamsi for going too far, Tamsi reminded him of the marks Remlin had drawn on them, which could protect them even from death. Soon they all stood up again, including Rudo, whose stomach wound healed instantly. To everyone's surprise, even Engine rose, unharmed. Engine removed one of Amo's shoes, turning off her power. He had been awake all along, just waiting for his chance. While Tamsi explained the situation to Delmon, Zanka watched in silence, realizing how cruel Amo's powers were, especially for people mourning their loved ones. The cleaners she had used stood broken and empty. Far away, the boss of the cleaners asked Semiyu what she saw in Rudo. She said it was something she couldn't explain. Something inside him, not his powers. As she spoke, Rudo walked toward Amo, unmasked. Amo smiled, thinking he still wanted her, but he suddenly punched her and kept hitting her in anger. Semiyu said something dark was growing inside him, like a curse that could destroy everything. Grizz and Engine pulled him back, but Rudo burned with rage. Engine reminded him of what mattered, and Rudo slowly calmed down. Later, the two talked about their mistakes and how both still had a lot to learn. Feeling lighter, Rudo got up, ready to start again. Meanwhile, Tome spoke kindly to Amo, who began talking about the angel who once gave her those boots, the one who could move between the sphere and the ground. Amo's story began when she was just a child. Her mother introduced her to a man, saying he would love her forever. The little girl believed her, not realizing her mother had sold her to him. The man took Amo to a castle, where she still lives, and gave her many gifts. When she grew older, he told her he was a trafficker and a giver, but people hated him for being strange. Whenever he got upset, he wanted to perform their ritual, which was abuse disguised as love. Amo's young mind couldn't understand what was happening, so she convinced herself it was normal. One day, two masked strangers broke into the room. One of them wore a mask like the one used by Regto's killer. The man tried to defend himself using his boots, which are now Amo's weapon, but he was easily beaten. Before leaving, one of the intruders handed the boots to Amo and said they suited her better. They then flew away with wings, looking like angels. Amo, amazed by what she saw, forgot about the beaten man. When he saw her holding the boots, he got angry and attacked her. Amo fought back, and during their struggle, he fell from the castle and died. Afterward, Rudo listened to her story. The boots had reacted to her, proving they were meant for her. When asked about the angel, Amo said she saw him again a month ago, around the time Rudo came to the ground. As she drew the angel's face, Rudo noticed it had the same mask as his uncle's killer. Rage filled him, but Amo stopped him, saying they were alike. Both of them were broken inside, using their instruments to fill what was missing. Rudo offered his hand to start again, and Amo smiled. Yet, as she closed her door, someone appeared behind her, and her scream echoed through the castle. The group sat together, patching up their wounds after the last battle. Remlin's drawing had saved their lives, but it only healed deadly injuries. So many of them were still sore and bandaged. Engine decided to take everyone to Alice Stilza, who turned out to be August and Aishia's grandmother. Alice and Aishia worked together to heal the team, and before they left, August warned them to be careful of something called the Cloud. Rudo didn't know what that meant, so they explained that sometimes the sphere shifted, causing piles of junk to fall from the sky like a storm of trash. As they talked, Rudo mentioned that when he crossed the border, he thought he saw something unusual, but the memory was still blurry. Before they could think much about it, Engine received a call from Semiyu. She warned them not to enter through the front gate because marauders were attacking the cleaners' headquarters. The bandits were shouting and threatening to destroy everything unless they got the spherite. They even fired a bazooka, but their attack didn't leave a scratch. The HQ was protected by a barrier made by one of the gifters. Semiyu stepped outside calmly, taunting the attackers. When they fired another rocket, she caught it using her vital instrument and sent it flying back at them. The explosion threw the marauders off their feet, and she quickly took down the rest without a single hit. When Engine and the others arrived, they found her standing among the unconscious bandits. After questioning the captured marauders, the cleaners learned that someone at a bar had leaked information about the spherite. They suspected the raiders were behind it. Despite the tension, the group shared food and jokes, which made Rudo uneasy. Soon, 3 new cleaners arrived to join them: Gita, Hebi Fantasia, Dear Santa, and their leader, Santa Bro. While Rudo quietly complained about how relaxed everyone seemed, a hooded man approached him. He warned Rudo to watch out for the raiders and then showed him Amo's shoes. When he removed his hood, Rudo realized he was the leader of the raiders. Before they could react, his partner Kathoni opened a portal, pulling Rudo and the others inside. When they woke up, they found themselves in a dark sewer surrounded by the raiders, including Jabber. Rudo stepped forward, demanding to know where Amo was. Engine mocked the raiders, saying they messed up their plan by bringing extra people along with Rudo, but their boss didn't seem bothered. He had already expected it. As he checked his clock, a wave of trash suddenly poured into the area, sweeping the cleaners into a deep hole. Only Rudo stayed behind because the enemy leader grabbed him before he could fall. While Zanka and the others were carried away by the flood, Engine tried to go with the flow, but the current split, forcing him to separate from his teammate. Behind the raiders, several portals opened, and each one stepped inside. Jabber turned to Rudo, smirking, and told him to behave for their boss while they went to have fun with his friends. The leader finally introduced himself as Zodal Typhon. He made Rudo an offer to destroy the sphere together. He admitted he had never been there, but somehow knew they shared the same vision. Rudo ignored that and demanded to know where Amo was. Zodal dodged the question again, saying Rudo was avoiding the real conversation. He asked why Rudo joined the cleaners and if he was satisfied working with people who didn't share his goal. Elsewhere, Ryu woke up under piles of trash and noticed one of the raiders nearby. Ryu understood what was happening, but she didn't really care. Her opponent, Noerda, took out a hair comb and started combing her hair. From that, Ryu realized that if Noerda's weapon was a comb, then her power probably had something to do with her hair. Ryu laughed at her and said she had the advantage because she used scissors. Then the scene switched back to Zanka. He still didn't believe he had defeated Jabber, and he was right. He hadn't even touched him. Jabber's gloves changed into their real form, turning huge and creating a barrier around him. Jabber was excited, saying it was rare for someone to push him enough to reveal his real power. Zanka, on the other hand, stood there shocked. He couldn't believe Jabber wasn't even trying before. Ryu wasn't doing well either. She was already on the ground, weak and unable to move. It turned out Noerda's comb created static electricity and made her hair electric. Noerda then used Ryu's own words against her, saying that scissors were a bad match against her hair. And this was where the first part of the story ended. But don't worry, we will be back soon with the next part of Gachiakuta. Till then, MiRo-T bids you goodbye. If you liked the video, hit the like button, share it with the OG recap fans, and subscribe for part 2.